Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Welcome back to episode 20 of the Altered States Unplugged podcast. I am one half of this dynamic duo, Kyle Strubing. I am here with my life partner, my wife partner, my everything partner, Jojo Strubing. Jojo, baby, how we doing today?
We're doing good. We are talking about one of my favorite topics here, which is what happens in your brain when you float. So I'm excited to dive deep into this topic because I think for so many of us out there, I mean, when I first heard about float therapy, it was like, why would I do that? Right? Like, why are people putting themselves in these float cabins of salt water? And so this episode's really going to help you understand why it's so beneficial and what really happens when you're in the float tank to make it so powerful.
Yes. What levers are we pulling? Before we get into that, I do want to say we are joined by our product line here.
Glad they could make it.
Yes. So one did not, but I'm glad the rest of you guys could make it. We touched on a previous podcast about the product. So if you want to, if you're watching this and you see something that looks interesting, go ahead and tune into episode 19 when we break all those down, or come and see us in the stores.
Yeah.
And we will go ahead and be happy to explain it to you and figure out what might be a good fit for you. So go and check those products out.
Yeah, these are an incredible new product line we just launched. They utilize fulvic, which is missing from so many of the supplements and nutrients that we take today. We'll go in deep if you go watch the last episode, but the ability to absorb these ingredients is really high. And so a lot of people are finding that they're so much more powerful than other supplements that they've taken before. So we sample all of these in stores, so stop by and check them out.
Yes. So go check those out. But back to the topic at hand here, the kind of what it is, what levers are we pulling as to why we're feeling so good when we float. Couple things we're going to break down in this episode is there's some, high level neuroscience behind float therapy and why it is so powerful. How floating helps with stress, anxiety, creativity, and mental clarity. The latest research on brain waves, neurotransmitters, and cognitive function. That was a mouthful. And most importantly, how you can get the most out of your float sessions. Right? By the end of the episode, you'll walk away with some real science-backed insights into why floating isn't just relaxing. It's actually rewiring your brain in a way that few other practices can. So I'm excited about it. Let's jump in.
Yeah.
Let's jump in.
Yeah. You want to take away this first one?
I'll take away the first one, the neuroscience of floating. Love neuroscience. What happens in the brain? So what in the hell is actually going on there? I promised I wouldn't cuss. I don't think that's too much of a bad one. But I'm going to go ahead and just break it down in layman's terms because, yes, this is backed by real research. When we first got into this game, I was, I don't have a medical degree or whatever, but I can read, and I want to see some studies. What's the deal? What is, are we just talking out of our ass here, or what are we doing? Right. So I was very surprised and pleased at the amount of research that had been done into this. Everybody knows about floating, but floating we didn't invent it. It's something that's been going on since the 60s, 50s. And it hasn't gotten real mainstream until I would say, I think the first commercial float tank was in the 80s by the Samadis, but it's something that has been around for a while, for as long as I've been alive, and that's a long time. It gets longer and longer, but so it's nothing new, and there is a lot of science and stuff basing into it, or that goes into it. So the biggest thing, right, is that your brains shift into a theta state. I talk about this all the time in the store. The goal is to get to theta. How do I get to theta? We go over how to get to theta. We've talked about all that, but the idea with this is you have alpha, beta, theta, and delta, right? Delta being full on REM sleep, theta is one step above. The biggest challenge is getting your brain waves to slow down, right? And we go through a bunch of different practices in store on how to get you to that spot. But normally we're in beta, right? So it's fast, problem solving, super aware, overthinking, hyperactive. We're taking on all this. It's helping us process all this stimulus, right? Then once you shut all that stimulus off, and then your stimulus, your inner thoughts calm down, then you can access your theta brain waves. So that is the difference between, right, sitting there, you just hanging out on the corner, doing whatever, even with your phone down, but you're still taking in some things, and now you're able to shift all that energy in, right? So that's like, and also you lose, beauty of that is you lose concept of time. So I tell people that all the time. They're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do in the tank for an hour? Well, don't worry about it. Your theta brainwaves are going to engage. You lose concept of time, all that stuff. That's how people are able to meditate for these long extended periods, is because they're essentially not there. Their brain is moving at a different speed. It's moving at a different pace is kind of the idea. So when you enter into theta, what that does, it gives you a deeper meditation. One of the coolest things of floating that I noticed is it enhances your creativity. Creativity, when I hear creativity, I think of like, oh, I'm creative. I'm going to paint a picture or whatever. I'm not a painter, but I also have, part of our job as business owners is problem solving. Like, this is a huge thing for us. Like, it really allows us to, like, solutions just tend to come out of the ether, and I get inspiration that way because you're now focused, and you don't even really focus per se on the problem and obsess over it. It just kind of comes to you. You open these other neural pathways that this inspiration and things come to you. It also is linked to memory consolidation. So I always tell people to focus on positive memories as well. And then I know Bowen talked about before, he kind of will delve into some of the more negative ones to help with trauma, but that really helps. And then the fourth, another big one, is the neuroplasticity, right? Rewiring of your brain, keeping it in that tip-top state.
Yeah.
Studies from the Laureate Institute for Brain Research have shown that float therapy significantly increases theta wave activity, similar to the deep meditative states that the Buddhist monks achieve after years and years of practice.
That's
when they're
incredible.
It is. And the monks are sitting up there in the Himalayas, right? They still have some stimulation though. So it takes them time to get to that point, right? I cannot meditate at the house now, right? You'll come in, you're moving around. The dogs will come and lick me in the face.
You hear a car outside.
You hear a car outside,
yes, yeah.
all that. So that really, of anything, it just takes and gets you to that point. And then you can basically float and meditate and think at the level of those monks. That's what the floats do. They create that environment for that by getting rid of your senses, right? Theta waves they're like a sweet spot between wakefulness and sleep. It's almost like the in-between, right? So like I'll kind of be, after a long day, I'll sit down the TV and Jojo will walk by and be like, should be having a full-on conversation with me, but I have my eyes open because, she'll have a conversation with me because I have my eyes open. I know it sounds creepy, but I'm kind of asleep, but I'm in between, but I'm aware. That's your theta brainwaves. Or else I also talk in the stores, like when you're in that deep kind of dreaming right before your alarm goes off, it's not full on REM, but it's like in that in between. That's where your theta brainwaves off. So think of that.
And a lot of people, they come out and they're like, man, I feel like I was asleep, but I'm not sure. I'm like, okay, then you were doing it right. Like that's where you want to be. Yeah. Like so relaxed, you almost feel asleep. But you're not full on snoring just yet.
and then in your float, as you get better at your float practice, you can navigate those experiences better. You can take it to a place. You can astral project. You can, do the visualization and manifestation within that theta within that theta state. So, super powerful tool. One mind-blowing fact on this, that researchers found that just after one float session, you can carry those theta brainwaves upwards for days. So it's not just right away, it's days afterwards. So especially on my first float, I noticed for 3 days, I was just chill and calm. Things didn't affect me as much. And that really helped. So
yeah, pretty powerful. Very cool.
Yes.
All right. So the second thing that happens in your brain when you float is your cortisol drops, right? So dopamine and serotonin increase, and it really focuses on your hormone response, right? So floating has been shown to reduce cortisol, your brain's main stress hormone. At the same time, it's boosting that dopamine and serotonin, which are those feel-good chemicals, the things we want in our body. So there was a study done by PLOS1 that found that after just one 60-minute float session, participants had a significantly decrease of anxiety and stress, even those diagnosed with GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder. Right. So this is why so many people find floating such a powerful tool. I know I've told you many times this before, but the first time I floated, I stepped out and I told you, I feel like I just took a Xanax. And it was at a time in my life where I had insane anxiety. We had just quit drinking and I was trying to avoid things like Xanax, but I knew those things worked, but I was looking for those alternatives. And I floated and I came out and I was like, man, this is the most calm I felt in ages. And it really does last for a few days. I mean, we were believers, obviously, right away, but for that chronic stress, the burnout and anxiety disorders, it's a game changer. But there's true science that your cortisol is dropping and that dopamine and serotonin is increasing. And that's why it feels so good, literally, when you come out.
Yeah. People think that like, oh my gosh, I have such high anxiety. Like I'm not going to be able to get in that tank by myself and I'll just get anxious and I'll get this. It's the opposite of it. And yes, that might be a little anxious at first, but once you get past that, you get the residual benefits then for days too. So it's, another one of those like temporary discomfort for long-term gain, right? Yeah. So we see that all the time. It's that, people have that post-float glow is kind of the idea when they walk out of the store.
Yep.
The third one is sensory deprivation in regards to the default mode network, short DMN, right? So this can get a little technical, but like what you have your DMN is your default mode network. What that is responsible for is like overthinking, self-criticism, ruminating on the past, worrying about the future, things like that, right? So like for me, I'm like, and that's kind of like psychedelics to me turn that up. That's why I've never been a big fan and like the microdosing and stuff. So for me, it turns it up. So I kind of my self-talk is very overthinking, self-criticism, and I ruminate on the past. So what it does is it turns all of that off, right? And that allows you, that's why I always tell people in the store, it's like, hey, look, there's nothing but positive vibes in the tank. Well, there's a reason why that is. It's because your DMN gets turned way down, right? Yeah. So it's not just there's nothing but and I don't go through and explain that to them, but like that's an actual thing that's going on in there. So, and it really it just can be a real powerful. It just can be a real powerful tool for that, right? Dr. Justin Feinstein, a leading neuroscience at Laureate again, has done extensive studies on float therapy and found that it quiets the DMN, creating a profound state of mental stillness. And then while you're in that, then you have your theta brainwaves engage, right, guys? And you can actually recreate how you think the future is almost going to go. And I know this sounds a little woo-woo, but you can do that through all that, once again, why we preach visualization and manifestation. So if you're thinking that it's going to go this way because you're overthinking it, you have these negative thoughts, now that's not in there. And then you have this environment where you can recreate what that experience, what you want that experience to be. I mean, that's...
Or reframe a past experience.
Exactly.
I mean, that's so powerful. And it all makes sense now, right?
Yeah.
As to why that's happening. And, it's insane. It's incredible. And because you'll have these feelings when you step out of the tank and you'll see it happening. But then when you go through the research and understand it, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get it now. Yeah.
Big time. So what are the benefits, babe?
Yeah. Well, and I just wanted to point out, that's why floating is so different than just lying in bed, taking a nap, or people are like, why can't I just float in my pool? Because your brain is actually shutting off more than just the physical noise, but the mental noise and allowing you to reach that deep state. So it's very powerful. And I do feel like when you get in the float tank, it's almost like this vulnerable state of, a lot of people won't wear clothes and you're kind of, in this environment of no light, no sound, and you're just putting there to be like authentically you in this environment. And you let your guard down and you kind of come back to yourself of like, I don't want to criticize myself anymore. I don't want to ruminate on why I'm so mad at this person. I just want to come back to like myself and my feelings and me. And it's really
it's very
powerful.
Elemental. It's very primal for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. But let's dive into
what about the big benefits, Jojo?
So now that you know what's happening in your brain and the science behind it, which I highly recommend you go do some more digging there. Let's talk about like what's the real world benefits of why you should do this. And number one, obviously, is the stress relief and anxiety reduction. I myself get this huge benefit from that lowering of my cortisol, lower stress response, and for days on end after I float. That nervous system shifts from my flight or flight to that rest and digest. I get long-term benefits of being calmer over time, and I'm training my body and like rewiring my brain in there in a lot of situations. So sometimes I'll take myself back to stressful anxiety or situations where I had an anxiety attack and rewire them to like tell myself that I can do them, or that there's no reason to be afraid of them. So really powerful things that you can do in those in there. A study from Sweden from 2016 found that float therapy led to 31% reduction in stress-related symptoms over time. That's
do you want 31% less stress, babe?
I do.
I do.
If I heard it on a commercial, I would sign up.
Sign up. If you didn't own stores, yes, for sure. Next one, and I kind of touched on this earlier, it's a huge one, is creativity and problem solving. So theta brainwaves are linked to breakthroughs. I read this study, but like many artists, musicians, and CEOs use floating to generate new ideas. Like there's actual documentation of this, and that was pretty neat. I think in The Simpsons, like Lisa goes in and floats to try to help her with her music and stuff. But it's a thing, right? It definitely, and myself, like for sure, like Jojo and I will be talking about something, a problem, or we're looking for a solution. We're just like, hey, let's float about it, and then we go and float. And a lot of times stuff comes to us. It's, we are a true testament to that. And then you guys know all the big guys like Tom Brady, Steph Curry, Joe Rogan, they all swear by it. And that's for like creative visualization. The visualization in there is key. You can manifest everything and spin it forward. NASA did a study on float therapy as a tool to enhance astronauts' cognition and creativity in a problem solving in space, for sure. So fantastic tool.
NASA's doing it, we got to do it. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Didn't start out that way with as far as government was concerned, but it certainly ended. Well, and that's the thing, right? When they originally did it, they kind of thought it was going to be almost like a torture mechanism.
Yeah. So
they could get people to talk. And then they would put these guys in this float tanks for 8 hours, and these dudes were coming out like so relaxed and for the exact opposite of what they wanted. They thought you being inside would almost make yourself go crazy, like solitary confinement. Yeah. But since they were sensory deprived, they come out feeling way better. And they're like, this is great, but that's not what
I don't know how I feel about an 8-hour float though.
I mean, sleep a little, float a little, sleep a little, float a little. But yeah.
All right. Number 3 is mental clarity and focus. So float therapy improves your focus. You're eliminating all of that external stimuli. You get that post-float clarity. That's a real thing. I truly feel it. I feel inspired when I come out of the float. I always am like ready to get back into whatever I was doing because I really feel re-energized. So incredible benefits there.
All right. Should we get into how to get the most out of your float?
Yeah, go for it.
So let's talk some strategy. Okay. Let's be tactical about this. How do you make sure your float session it's next level, that you get something out of it, right? First one, set an intention before you float. Right? You got to be mindful, got to be present, set an intention. What do I want to get out of this? I have an hour. I've paid X amount of dollars. Let's get something out of this. If you float with us, this is part of our process. If you don't float with us, and please, if you don't float with us, go. If you've never floated before, go. Yeah. If there's not an Altered States in your area, go and do it. But try to, put it upon yourself to say, this is what I'm trying to get out of this, right? What do I need? Am I looking for something? Do I just want to blank out and do, my goal is just relax, get some deep relaxation, then go for it. Push the things out of your head and take a break for an hour. Fine. Or are you looking for some more creative inspiration? And you can dictate that float, and whoever your float provider is should be able to help you with some insight towards that. If they don't, go and check out one of our podcasts before you go in there for sure.
Yeah. The next is try visualization techniques. We've done an incredible episode before on manifestation and visualization and how to do that in the float tank. So check that out. But, this is what athletes do when they're in there. They're visualizing and rehearsing their plays. But we can do that as, entrepreneurs thinking about their next move or a presentation. Or if you just have a difficult conversation coming up or a big decision, or if you just want to manifest something for the positive, using those visualization techniques can be really, really powerful and highly recommended when you go into your flow session.
Yeah. We've had Cy Young Award winners, college athletes, pro athletes, you name it. They've all been in there and they all talk about visualization. Mm-hmm. They all the top performers, they see it as like a secret weapon. Yeah. That way, when you're in that situation, you feel like you've been there before. Your body can't tell the difference with what your mind's going through. So it really helps. The third pro tip for you is to practice deep breathing. I coach box breathing. Inhale 4, hold for 4, out for 5, out for 4. Hold again for 4. And if, like the one guy told me, well, damn, I'm fat. I can't hold my breath for that long. And I said, well, whatever that is for you, my man, like if it's a second, it's a second. But really what you're trying to do is bring it back to mindful, right? If you're thinking about your breathing, that's the most elemental thing you can think about. You're not thinking about, I got to have the kids here. I got to do this proposal. I got to do this. I got to do that. You're just thinking about being there and breathing. So super powerful technique. And what that does is that's going to activate your parasympathetic nerve system for a deeper relaxation.
And then the last thing is let go of control. Kyle will always say, like, what is it? Be like Elsa and let it go when you get in there.
Yeah, be like Elsa and let it go.
So don't try to relax. Just allow it to happen. Don't be so hard on yourself. Just go in there open-minded and, ready to just experience whatever comes and whatever happens while you're in there. So
just that's a wrap on the science there. Hopefully we didn't bore you to death with that stuff, but we just wanted to lend a little credence about what we do. It was certainly eye-opening to me when we first opened the store and started vetting out what it is we were doing. Because I get in there, I'm like, why do I feel this way? It's something so basic, so simple. Well, these are some of the reasons why. But yeah, so we hope you guys go check that out. But yeah, a couple key takeaways. Floating shifts your brain into theta waves for deep relaxation and creativity. Theta waves are good. We like those. Need more of those in your life because we have so much stimulation, right? It reduces stress and anxiety by lowering your cortisol and boosting your serotonin. Cortisol down, serotonin up. Feel good, cortisol's the stress. The serotonin is your feel-good chemicals. And then it's going to enhance mental clarity by quieting the default mode network, DMN. So if you are ready to experience it for yourself, come and float at Altered States Wellness in Capel, Richardson, and soon to be Houston, Cypress area and all across the country. We're so excited about it. I promise that it will change your life.
Yeah. You can book a session at alteredstateswellness.com. If you loved this episode, we would love if you shared it with someone else that could enjoy it. Subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. But until next time, we will see you in the next episode.
Thank you.